Hello. Welcome to the family card table. Yep, it's brand new. Got it at the Ren Fair in Cedar City. Ren Fairs are quite a sweetness in my heart because, I have the body for the part. So you just look pretty in those things. I mean, those dresses, your butt could be as big as a mountain. And no one would even know. It's just wonderful. So I thank you for the Renaissance Fair and for the card table hat for today. And we are here with Gina and Donna. Rob is out and about, so we're playing a different card game. We're going to talk about what your cards can tell you about you, and it's going to go where it goes. And I just want to honor that today we have the king, the queen, and the jack, all the divine feminine with their balanced masculine, working to help families find a better way to communicate and, understand each other better, work together better. So I'm so happy to be here. So what's been going on for you guys? I know we've been chatting, but what do you want to bring to our beginning of the conversation? Any topics or anything you want to share for today?
So yeah, I'll start with that. I get a lot of my news on my phone. That way I can kind of control what I'm getting, especially in this day and age when there's just so much craziness out there. And 2 days ago, I read this article that talked about how there's an increasing percentage of Americans that are estranged from their family members. And the article was based upon like a study that was conducted in 2020 that indicated that 27% of Americans over the age of 18 are literally estranged from a close family member, like their parents. And the article also talked about how there's a TikTok handle, hashtag toxic family, that has gotten like over 1.9 billion views.
Wow.
And then it went on to describe like several of the main reasons why these people are basically cutting family members out of their lives. And one of the reasons was that that the other person, particularly a parent, didn't accept them for their authentic self. And so I think that's really interesting how that overlaps what we're going to be talking about today with what the cards can tell us about each other. When you have situations in families where, particularly if there's an adult and a child, that the adult is not accepting a child for their authentic self. And for me, that authentic self is who that child is based on their birth card and their planetary ruling card. And like one example the article talked about was an evangelical religious family, and the daughter came out in her teen years as being lesbian. And they just didn't accept that about her. They would not allow that. She even went so far as to just cutting her dad out of her life completely because of it. So that is like a trend. It's an alarming trend.
My goodness, Donna. First off, we should for sure make a copy of that article and mark whoever wrote it and put it in here, because that kind of information, that's just nectar for just what's really going on. So my researcher heart brain is like all over the place with what you said, because in just yesterday when I was with the girls that I'm able to mirror as they grow authentic, I honored how at 13 I had literally made a costume of a half a boy and a half a girl, because it's how I felt inside. I put a mustache on one side, slicked my hair back, painted it, like sewed a skirt onto some jeans. Like I made myself half a boy and half a girl, and it felt so good because I was like, oh, this feels so much better. So now I think with the consciousness that's upon us, there's an awareness that we are in fact all things, which would also mean the masculine and the feminine. And I hear you also tell us how the planetary ruling card and your card kind of say who your authentic self is, but there's also your own unique frequency and expression of how you're going to play that card, right? Because there's a lot of similarities in your kings, and there's a lot of like quirky, unique things in the kings because they're eccentrics. So, like everybody does it a different way. So, all to say that how they come through their journey is kind of like their terrain of how they build their system or how they're going to navigate their different strengths and weaknesses, or things that come to them and things that they have to like push themselves and get going for, like whatever their classroom is. So to be authentic with somebody is to be truthful about where you're at the time, because yeah, there's for sure a way that people are the way they are. But the hardest part is being the way you are when somebody's looking at you telling you, gosh, we really wished you were red, but you're green. Gosh, if you were the red one, we really thought you'd be everything if you were the red one. But it's okay that you're green. We'll accept that you're green. All right, you're green. But it's like, what are you doing? Like, they're red. Like, it's like me talking about the boys or anything. Like, in my head sometimes, because I don't get it, or I'm frustrated by it, or I like when people think like me, I want to like barb at it. But truly, they're saying, and I love being this me. Can you love this me? Because that's what I want around me. People who love this me and aren't asking me to be a different one. And if we can offer that to our family, I don't know that we would reside in that cesspool of a toxic family. I think that that's kind of a cop-out, quite honestly. I think that's what people do. You'd rather go and tell your stories to someone else than to do the time to help the person understand, right? I come from really stubborn people, really stubborn, and I'm obviously still one of them to a degree. But the time it takes for them to really understand when you say it from your heart is a lot less than when you keep throwing barbs and like guns and stuff at them. Like hearts cut through a lot. So that's my reflection, but great stuff. I'd love to share the article and see it.
Yeah, yeah. I'll send that to you for sure, and we can post it. I've had experiences with clients that have talked about these kinds of situations in their own families. And while I'm not keeping any kind of like data on it, anecdotally, I can tell you that I see it a lot with Jacks. So Gina, maybe you could speak to this, but like, as an example, I have a female client who is a Jack of Diamond, and kind of the playful irresponsibility aspect of that card was tough for this client, having two very successful parents. But this person also now identifies as queer. And that was also like a huge problem in the family. Very conservative family, conservative values. And that is definitely a trait that can manifest in any Jack, is this kind of like non-binary energy, this, so they can identify across a spectrum of different sexual identities. I've also seen that with people who have a 3 of heart as their birth card or their planetary ruling card. And then I've seen it with, I have 2 clients actually who are Queen of Heart men, and they are gay. And I tell them, you're queens. You're really queens. And they love that.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's that, like, we have to be mindful because not every man who's a queen is going to be gay. I know plenty of queen men that are very masculine, but they're very intuitive too, though. They know how to tap into that feminine nature. And yes, to say on the Jacks, maybe she came to initiate them, to kind of see it from a different perspective, right? Because that is what the Jacks do. They are initiates, and with the Jack energy, I've been the black sheep of my whole family. You know what I mean? I've always bucked the system. I've always gone against the grain. I've done things that people are like, oh, why would you do it that way? But for me, I march to the beat of my own drum, and I think, and the Jacks do have that is that the right word? Androgynous energy, where they can kind of be. I was a tomboy growing up. I've never been a very girly girl type energy. I've always gotten along better with men specifically, but I'm very heterosexual. I love men. So I've never even been down that space at all. It's just not for me, but to each his own, right? And I think too, I think the Jacks are also more accepting to become as you are, because we can really be anybody we want to be. You never know who you're gonna get when I wake up that day, right? Like you just don't know what mood I'm gonna be in and where. And that's the one, I think that's one thing I love about me and my energy is I can fly with the seat of the wind. Like, so let's do this. I don't really stick, even though I'm a fixed card. I'm fixed in my heart. If I, I'm gonna definitely not. You're not gonna get me to budge if I love you. But at the same time, I can be very free spirit. I've always been called like I've moved a lot. I never really had roots. I just, can up and go somewhere if it sounded like a good idea. And I think for a lot of people, I think that challenges people because they want to be able to do it, but there's some reservations. Like, and maybe with that Jack of Diamonds client, she challenges her family to be able to look at things from different perspectives. And, she's bringing forth another set of values that they weren't open to. And it can be hard when it's your parents or when it's the people who raised you. And now they're looking at like, I did something wrong. And that's one thing I think these cards can really help people with. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't make them this way or whatever you may think. I think there's just understanding the energy, right? And knowing that, oh, okay, she's a Jack, then she, I talk about that all the time. We can go from the Waffle House to the White House in one day. We're able to kind of morph into different spaces and take on different, roles. And so in this time, that's the role she wants to be in. And you either are going to accept it or not. And I think though, if her parents were open, maybe she can really promote for them to kind of like look at things from a high, because it sounds to me they're more on like the peasant side of that energy where they can get stuck in the mundane, where if really allow her to be who she is, we can bring everybody over to what I call the royal side of that energy, where you just allow them to be who they are. So yeah, I think that's one thing about these cards that really I think can help families, is when you realize like that's what she was born to play.
I remember reading somewhere, I forget where, that, and it just affirms that this card wisdom has been around for a really long time about Jacks, that, how we have these nursery rhymes like Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, and then there's like Jack and the Beanstalk. And so, it's natural to wonder, like, why is the name Jack constantly used? Right. And this article I was reading explained it. They said that the name Jack was used a lot because it represented, like many generations ago, represented boys and girls, the energy of boys and girls. And so by using that name, they were appealing to girl and boy readers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is wisdom that's been around and integrated into our society, and you just don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm. It's so subtle, but so true, right? Well, my dad's name was Jackie. So I totally hear that. And he was the Jack of Clubs. So I completely understand. I'm grateful for those two mavericks that were my parents. I also think it's interesting how the ideals stay sticky, like that whole, like you have to be like this, or that foundation of whatever that root was to try to like make people something different than they naturally are. Like, there's something about that really feels like an awareness that we all could use, right? Because the idea of perfect according to a concept is only a prison, right? Because there's no such thing. The only way that you get to express your perfection is when you feel the aliveness in your heart and your opening and your blooming. Like that's your perfection. And however it comes out is perfect, right? We really can't mess it up. But I think it's the way we use the people close to us to represent us. Like even in this short visit, going out and about in town, and the twins walking with me and stuff like that, I felt more confident because I was walking with them. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I tell them, like, just being around them, I feel like my vibe gets higher, right? I can feel a frequency shift because they're living in a completely different paradigm than I am. Like we really don't share realities at this time. Do you know what I mean? Like we share love, but we don't share realities. So even when your family means that you break away because somebody's sharing another reality, maybe they're sharing the reality of what it is to be a girl when you're born as a boy or vice versa, but they're having an experience. And that experience, just like every one that we live through, is a classroom of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is all about. Like we're trying to bring you to your seed and walk you through the process of understanding how you're shaped and how you become yourself so you can let go more easily and go back to what the values are that you want to share in your family. That's the game of it. Like, what are the family rules? Like, how do we all play together in a way that everybody's safe? And if somebody thinks that they have to dominate or that somebody has to be green when they're red, well, then that's going to suck.
Yeah.
Right. And if somebody doesn't manage their emotions, right? Because the boys were watching this Smokey and the Bandit movie the other day. Now, when I saw Smokey and the Bandit, I had just become a driver. And I love driving. I want to be in demolition derbies. Like I thought it was so much fun. You know, I love the dirt bikes. I love all that stuff, right? So when they were chasing and running, like now what they see is like so vivid and so like dynamic. Like to me, cars going fast and racing and going on other cars was so exciting. What they see now, I feel like it's numbing. I'm like, I can't even like register. But to them, it's different because they weren't the girl growing up in the woods who could drive her car fast and around things like he could, whose best friend had a Trans Am. And like, you know, we had fun with that, you know. But the part I want to bring in is Jackie Gleason and the way he talked to his son like he was a piece of dirt the whole time. He just kept putting him down, telling him mean things, making him do stuff for him. And I don't mean any offense to the people who I came from, but boy, did they do a little bit of that here and there. Did they see us like children you should be seen and not heard and just told what to do? And do I fight that in myself too? Yes, I do. I fight that dominance you're able to have to kind of get everybody to do what you want, but you weren't necessarily paying attention to the fact that another human being was sitting next to you. They were more of like a deflection, a punching bag, a projection of whatever was inside of you, and they could just deal with it whoever they needed to. That's not nice. You know, like that's really not nice. You know, it's just really, really not nice. But boy, it's so habitual. And I think it's interesting because that's what we're growing out of is those long running hurts that people had that they didn't know how to manage. And it came out directly or indirectly to the others around them. So interesting. I wonder what the forest would do, how they'd clean that up. I'm going to have to give that to prayer.
Mm.
Well, I think too, like, you know, when our families really do, like, I think a lot of people who, you know, go against the grain of what their families, you know, wanted or thought, it challenges them, right? It puts them in that space of like, if there's a challenge here, and or, you know, and again, I think with the Jack energy, it is here to kind of, again, like I'll go back to that. It initiates being able to see things from different places, different perspectives, and really opens you up to a whole realm of possibilities. But people can limit themselves. You know, I've known plenty of times where families disown people because of their choices and, you know, their sexual orientation. I mean, even go back to 2020 when people were disowning family members for choices they would or would not make. You know, so, you know, and so I think this is, you know, but I think that's, you know, you have to be your authentic self. You have to be able to say, this is why I'm doing this, this is what I want, you know, and not really worry about how other people, because again, you can't control them. You can't, you know, dictate what they're going to do. You really only have control for yourself. So, you know, I made plenty of choices in my life that I'm pretty sure everybody would be like, what were you doing? But it was what I needed to do. It's my choices. It's my decisions to make. And I think there's also, you know, allowing people to kind of experience the things that they need to experience, you know, because it's their path, it's their life. And I think that's one of the best things I've gotten from these cards is you kind of take the people out of it and you look at just at the energy. And now you understand this is why they, you know, think the way they do or do the things that they do, because I can take the person out of it and look at the energy of the card. And there's just more grace that comes with that, I think. And I think that we can help lots of families in that space because there is a lot of friction. And just like you were saying with the whole toxic family and, kids not wanting to deal with their parents. I saw a thread the other day on TikTok about like the whole mom and daughter thing, right? And how a lot of mothers and daughters are dealing with a lot of separation just because of my mom didn't want me, my mom didn't love me, my mom didn't understand me, my mom was jealous of me, or whatever the case may be, right? But take your mom out of it, I bet you if you go back to her mom and her mom, you know what I mean, a lot of this is generational. And until you decide it stops with me and my offsprings and my kids, that's where you do realize you have power here. You really do have the power to say no, to stop it. You don't have to continue the cycles if you don't want to.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it reminds me too of the end of that same article talked about that as well, where this gal said that even though she's cut off from her family, she's created her own family of like friends and people in her community. So I think that's important to do. There are times when it's not healthy to continue certain relationships, but family is important. And there's nothing wrong with like finding a family or establishing a family that is not like a blood relation family.
Right.
Because that kind of energy is really important and healing, and is important for our own growth to be around others and relate to others, particularly in healthy relationships.
And I've always felt like because I was such a black sheep of the family, my own family, I've always been adopted by other people. I've always felt loved from my friends' parents, or not to say that my parents didn't love me, they do, but I've always felt more welcomed and more accepted in other places at times. And so I've always had like these extended families. I mean, I even have a friend that I've known since we were little. Her mom's like, you're like my daughter. I've become people just adopt me. And so, and it's a beautiful thing. And I'm very grateful for that. I've had close friends who become my families. Like you said, you create your own family. And it doesn't mean you don't have anything to ever do with the people who are blood related to you, but it's just a different, it's a different space, And
oh yeah, I mean, I think that's that's like the magic of community, right? Because that's what's meant to happen in my experience. Like there's so many young people that were in my family for sections of time, and God, the alchemy they brought, even the way my kids would respond to me, because they responded to me differently, and they brought a certain softening, and they brought conversations that maybe I wouldn't have had with my children, but I had with these people in my house, So it became alive in ways that it wasn't alive because of the relationships with the outside circles, right? That's why that sisterhood that is in my heart, that is my final part of whatever grows from me, is circles touching circles, like that flower of life, like people sharing a frequency of understanding, because there's a sense of safety in that, right? And we're struggling with what the churches are and what to believe in, but our own beings and finding out our own values and working well with others in an authentic, high vibe way, that's nobody's job but your own. That's what spirituality is. Simply, that's all it is. And whatever awareness you choose, but do you know it for yourself, or did someone else tell you? One of my professors, Eleanor Carducci at MSU, made a button of that when I was learning about women and women's studies. And I loved it. Do you know it for yourself, or did somebody tell you? Because when you know it for yourself, you know it. Because you know it. You got it.
So true.
It doesn't go away. It's the stubborn part. It's the stuck part. It's why I'm so grateful those 80 Clubs boys, John and Joey, exist, because it doesn't change. Like for real. But the love runs deep.
Oh yeah.
Like, and the commitment is as solid as like the edges of the Verrazano Bridge. You know what I mean? Like it's solid. But it's for sure something that it's an art. It's an art to relate to them and not be mad at them for being the way they are, because they don't get affected by things. They just don't. They just don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of funny after a while. And to me, I'm grateful, because as my emotional intensity was such a big part of my development in life school, they steadied me. Like when they left the realm, I realized how much they were steadying the water. And that's the way it works in families. There's different people who are the steadies. You just learn to relate to them the way they are. You don't get mad at them. For so many years, I was mad at Miles because he wasn't the way I thought he was supposed to be. As I'm going around telling everybody to be authentic. Like, I mean, what the hell's the matter with me, right? Like, what am I thinking? But like, you're in it so deep, you don't even know you're doing it, that you're making somebody feel bad about them.
Yeah, that's projection, right?
So then you got to love all the parts of you, right? That's the trick of it, right? You got to accept and take home all the parts. You can't like let something out like it's your gross part. It's like it is your gross part, and you got to accept it and work with it the best you can. But you can't make it someone else's fault that you feel squirrely. Do you know what I mean? If you feel squirrely, what are you going to do to not feel squirrely anymore?
Yeah, that's why I think it's really powerful to learn about your energies of your yearly spreads. So for our audience, what I'm talking about is that for your birthday year, not a calendar year, you have like cards that you're dealt in that given year of energy. And the displaced card is the card that represents an energy that you're going to be like acting like. It's like you're walking in the footsteps of that energy, so to speak.
You're in their house.
Yeah, you're literally in their house.
You're literally in their house,
right? It's like, what's that show on TV? Like spouse swatch.
Yeah. Yes.
Or like, yeah, it's kind of like that, where you
very much
out what it means to be in another person's house, and that's an opportunity. It's a time when you should consider what is that displaced card? What is it like to be that card? And particularly if that card is a family member's card, you get a chance to like live life through like their eyes, through their perspective. And that's a very valuable experience for others.
I don't know what that's like, but yes. I say that because I being a fixed card, I don't ever sit in anybody else's house, and nobody ever sits in my house. So that's why I've learned so much by doing other people's readings, because you see the patterns and where people go, because I don't go anywhere. I don't move. So it's been very beneficial for me to live.
What a smart thing to do. That's your genius, Gina, right? That's the genius of the universe, that's what you decided to do, because that's going to make your life bigger in a way that you love.
It's been the best, because when you do it, especially on the weeklies, you see how consistent, like where everything goes. And now because I don't energetically sit anywhere else. So, but I get to help. I see it through other people, and, and it helps me, to be able to kind of, what would it be like to sit there? Now I get a long range card. I get all the other cards. I don't get an environment card. And another crazy thing is, because I'm a Leo, I don't even have a planetary ruling card to even move from. So I am just the whole kit and caboodle of the Jack of Hearts. So, the highest expression of that energy, which makes sense for me, just knowing me. But it's been even seeing people's planetary ruling cards and how they move, and how the similarities of the two sometimes, right? And where they go on those plates it's fascinating. I love it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like the way that the weeklies work. I decided when we were getting closer to my 60th birthday, I was going to do it for the month before and the first month. I like my intuition, and I'm working towards a vision, like pretty focused, so nothing's really going to take me away from that, because it's pretty, like, I know it, like what we talked about before. Like, this isn't like, well, maybe I know what I'm doing when it comes to that part. I know why I'm doing it, so I don't move much. I'm kind of like fixed that way. But when it comes to the moving energies and listening to Gina explain it to me, one of the things I've noticed is a couple of opportunities that I may not be taking, right? Because I'm one who prefers comfort, right? So here's Gina telling me that, like, go to the track, like ride the horse, like get out there. And I'm like, oh, that's a nice horse. That's pretty. Oh, I'll send a picture. You know what I mean? So, it's like,
you're leveraging the opportunities. I love that. I literally had an email from a mom yesterday. She had given 2 consultations to each of her children, their young adults, for a Christmas gift. And so I saw the daughter in January and the son in February. And I told him, oh my goodness, looking at your spread of energy for this next year, you've got like ending work, new work. And he's like, huh? I'm like, oh yeah. And there's more, it looks like this card suggests there'll be like more money. So you'll be making more money. And so it like perked him up. And she emailed me yesterday that he accepted and started a new job in June, just when that energy was in his reading. Like, she was like, thank you.
That's the thing, I think. Oh, go ahead. No, I was gonna say, I think that's the thing, is like you give some, that's why I say guided by the cards, because like you really get in like, okay, this is what's around now. Just like in you know what Robert Camp talks about, if you ever sit on this in the crown, or you sit in the sun, a lot of some people don't take the opportunity. You know, just because you sit up there doesn't mean you'll be famous, doesn't mean that you get a promotion if you don't do anything to get you to that point. Right? If you don't utilize what's available to you, right? And I think that's one of the best things about these cards is like okay. Like, you know, if I'm looking at, I remember when I did the show, I did the elevator pitch, right? And I did that. And when I looked at the cards for that week, I knew I was going to get I knew it was going to work just based on the cards. But the crazy thing is like, I also, like, there was a part of me, I wasn't as prepared as I needed to be. It was all in my spread. And so I'm so glad that I could see that, but then I had to take accountability for where I fell short in not being having the numbers right. And plus it's a very intense and stressful thing. You got all these cameras around you, and I don't like being on camera as it is. So that really didn't help me. But because I could see the cards and what it had, it gave me this confidence that I knew it was going to happen, right? I knew I could walk in there, tell my story, and I was going to at least get in front of them. Whether or not I was going to get a deal, I didn't know 100%, but I knew my passion alone and my ability to kind of, express the power of magnesium was enough that's going to get me in front of those 3 investors. And it did. The whole elevator pitch worked.
What show is that?
You go on YouTube and you Google elevator pitch. I was on 2 years ago. I'll send you the link. You can watch it.
Okay.
Jack of Hearts style.
Put
I cried.
Below, Gina. Let's put it below. Let's add the link below.
How do I do that?
That's good. Well, no, I don't know how. We'll have to learn that. We do need to learn those things. But yeah, there's definitely a way. But we'll definitely learn all those parts. But that's like, we're living it out loud. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I appreciate all those concepts. I'm thinking about the part where with Gina, what she said to me, because what I do is I try not to like sit and harp. I let it go in, and then I just let it do what I think it's supposed to do, because I don't know. I don't want to get obsessive. I fought my obsessive nature for a long time, so I don't really like to feed my obsessions. So I just stay like trusting. But there's a few things she mentioned, and I was like, So when it was time to change my position a little bit at my job, in my brain, making 60 grand is like making great money. But today, 60 grand is like making 25 grand, right? So like I'm in a 60-year-old brain when it comes to money, right? And I'm just happy to be able to pay my bills. That's always how it's been for me. I know I'll get what I need. We got to take care of everything. I'll keep going. But I'm out of that, right? I had that 7 of diamonds year. I'm in a 9 of diamonds year. Like, nah, abundance is good, and freedom is good, and deep breaths are great, and you don't have to stress, and you should have what you need. So I just thought about because being a therapist to me, like if you think about being a bartender for 15 years, having a night where you made $200 or $300 is like, wow, right? Having to talk to people for 3 or 4 hours and making $500 or $600 is like, wow, like that's a big night, right? It's a lot of work. And so is bartending, and I love them both, but I'm done. And so when it comes to now, it's like, so I said, let me look at what I can make and what I need. Like what's going to actually be sustainable for me. Like what's going to be sustainable in a way that I'm not going to worry, and I'll be able to then collect buckets for other places and let everything grow. And what's going to make it steady. And I said it, and then sat down within a second. Yes, that'll be fine. You can have that, and we'll do this and that. And it was just like it was in the energy, but it was also the shift in my thinking, because she kept saying, as a seven of diamonds, you have to have a millionaire's mindset. And I feel like a millionaire because my life is what my life is, So I'm rich. I'm like super rich, you know what I mean? But I'm not a millionaire, right? So a millionaire's mindset is thinking like the current money, like the current game, right? I'm not back in my idea of what's supposed to be. Because in my idea, it's like, oh, we'll figure it out. Grandma Ruth had to split up a pound of chopped meat. We're better off than she was. Or, like you see yourself making little increments along the, like how hard it was in the Depression. One of the questions in our family card game last night was, what do you think you'd be like 100 if you were born 100 years ago, but you were 60 in the Depression? And that was my answer. Like, well, what would you think you'd be like right now, 60 years old in the Depression? And it would be such a different energy, right? Living at that time. There's so many different things. I said, only thing I could be sure is that I'd still probably be trying to laugh. Like I definitely would be trying to make it funny, because that's something I've been true to, but otherwise, I don't know what I'd be like. I don't know how sad you get when everybody thinks it's stuck, but I know a lot of people were really creative then, but they became very frugal minded and very fear based. And then the fear stuff continued and deepened, right? And then we were controlled and we started to sense it, but couldn't do anything about it. So there's more fear. And then between each other, we weren't safe. So then there's more fear, right? So like that growing from the inside out isn't just a flirty, funny hippie girl thing to say, is what's up, right? That's it. Like we have to grow from that inside clarity. We cannot trust the energies. They change with the tide and whenever we were able to be manipulated by each other. And unless you're able to know yourself and communicate your authentic self to somebody, you're not going to be able to play true.
And I think too that a seven of diamonds is such a powerful card to have, because it is spiritual values, it's spiritual money. But again, it's just where the outside is a reflection of the inside. So it's like saying constantly, and that was one of my biggest like pivotal moments for me in my life and how I was raising my kids. Because I remember they wanted something and I was like, can't afford that. We don't got it. And I was like, oh, that's the same stuff my mom used to say, and I hated it. And I hated it so much. And so it's a process to like reprogram yourself away from other people's viewpoints on wealth or prosperity, right? Because I was realizing like I had my mom's mindset on finances, and nothing against her, but she has a very like lack hoard, like, and again, she was raised from people from the Depression. So that kind of passed down to them and then to me. But see, with my dad, completely different. He's the ace of diamonds. He don't have a broke mindset. My dad's like, but you must work for your money. Like you did not get it for free. It came with a lot of hard work. But my dad was a type work hard, play hard. He did not mind. We could go out to dinner with my dad and there was no limit to what we could have. If I wanted a filet and I was 6 years old, I could have it. My mom, my brother, and I would have to split a meal. Like it was so different in that thought process. So even starting my business, every time like a tax return would come, I'd hoard the money. I was afraid to spend it, to invest it. And then like it would disappear. Like I would have nothing to show for it. And then the year that I decided that I was going to start my company, I did it from the tax return. And it was not easy for me to invest that money and hope that it would pay off. But I had to have faith, and it did. And so that seven of diamonds is out. I don't ever have that in my spread because of where I sit, but it's a big part of just my, really, really seeing that your outside is a reflection of how you think and what you believe, and you're creating that world. You're creating your own prosperity. That's why I use the analogy of the millionaire's mindset with that seven of diamonds, because millionaires cannot have a broke mindset. They would be broke. So it doesn't mean you'll be a millionaire. Hell, you never know. But it's about like, and don't be, they're not afraid to spend money. They're not afraid to lose money. They're not afraid to invest money because they have a frequency that if I'm letting it go, even more is coming back. And that's why it switches places with the 9 of hearts. You get it and then it goes. You get it and then it goes. You get it and then it goes. So as long as you're not attached to it, you actually free yourself of the, that I don't have enough, or what you focus on too. That's what I was realizing with my kids. We can't afford it. I don't have it. And then it would literally be like, we can't afford it. I was saying it. I was putting that out there. So I had to really do a lot of that internal work of changing my mindset. And it actually all happened like right as my oldest got into basketball. And that cost me a shit ton of money to do. And that tested my prosperity. And I'll never forget it. It was a clubhouse room after a weekend of us traveling. And I had this and I remember being at a restaurant and having a internal panic attack of how much money that weekend was costing me between the meals, the hotel, the travel. And I shared it with the group in that morning room that we used to do with Diamond. And someone said, look at it as an investment. Change your mindset on that and look at it as an investment. And now look, my kid had 3 college scholarship offers. So an investment, right? So it really is about you changing the internal dialogue and honestly realizing that dialogue is probably not even yours. It's someone else's influence. And until you create your own dialogue around prosperity, around the ability to attract money, love, relationships, you're kind of living out someone else's beliefs. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Conditioning.
Yes.
Right?
For sure.
Exactly.
We get conditioning from our parents and from other people that are close to us. And so it's valuable to look at what is that conditioning, and is that conditioning even based on their cards? Right. My mom was a king of club, and me being a queen of club, I was, more girly, and she was more the tomboy, and she would just poo-poo any kind of, ask from me to like buy makeup when I was, in middle school or high school, or to buy like the latest fashions and things like that. Cause she was like, oh, you don't need any of that. And then that kind of conditioned me for many years to have that attitude too. And so it is important to kind of look at those conditionings that we all have in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I transformed because money was used like a very power tool in my family with my father. Like he could do anything because he had money, right? So I didn't necessarily think of money as like, woohoo! I was like, oh boy, that's a whole bag of stuff when you get money, huh? So and I don't know that he created it alone. Do you know what I mean? Like he had a lot of money and he couldn't do certain things, and he played his game that way. But the way I talked about money in my little transformation that may transform again was I'm always going to get what I need. And like that stayed true. And I hear them all repeat that one, but I don't know what the upgrade would be, right? Because to me, that's my deepest faith, is to say, you know what I'm doing, my intention, you know what I mean? I'm open to receiving all abundance, and I'm open to giving everything I'm supposed to give, I'm in. So I'm going to get everything I need. And I don't know, like I said, if there's a way to transform that, I'm open to hearing that too, as long as with the forest figuring out what to do. But I would say to our show, it seems like the card pull would be really interesting for mothers and daughters, right? Because that's the strongest mirror. Yes, we'll do fathers and sons, and we can do that next time too. But let's stick with the mothers and the daughters and the projections of our families, like even the grandmother, the mother maiden crone, like hearing the voices of the young ones and the mothers and the elders, right? Like we'll pick a card for each and like hear what it is that we can understand from the cards in regards to this alchemy, because nobody's wrong. We just kind of have to be able to hear more than just the old song. Like we have to make new music. Music is going to be a big part of everything that grows.
Great. So let's do a family card pull. And we'll do grandmother, mother, and daughter. How's that sound?
That's good.
All right. I love this. So family card table, the way it works is that I'm going to take a real deck of cards, and I'm going to shuffle them, and I'm going to invite the wisdom of the cards to kind of be our teacher to reveal what we're going to learn about today about families. And as I mentioned, I'm going to pull 3 of these cards, one representing the grandmother birth card, the second representing the mother's birth card, and the third representing the daughter's birth card. And then we will discuss the energy of each of these cards, personality traits, the relational dynamics. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. All right. So the grandmother's card is a 5 of spade.
Ooh.
The mother's card is another 5, a 5 of diamond. And you're going to love this, Croatia. The daughter, the child's card, is an 8 of club. So I'm gonna start focusing. I always like to start with the children's cards, but having been a science teacher in my previous life for a very long time, I always loved my 8 of club students. It's called the Power of the Mind card. They were, really great students. They're systems thinkers. They can set and then achieve their academic goals very easily. So they do really well in school. It is a very fixed card. That's what we were talking about before. So what I think is kind of interesting about that is the fact that you have that fixed card with 2 very flexible other adults. So the 5 of diamond and the 5 of spade are very flexible, very opposite energies here. I like to call the 8 of club the oak tree card. They're so fixed. They're like an oak tree. They're oak trees, if you don't know, have deeper roots than other trees. So if there's like a hurricane, all the trees get knocked over except for that oak tree. It remains firm. But when you have a child like that, it means they're stubborn. Like they don't necessarily love to be pushed outside of their comfort zone. And yet 5s want change and want variety in their life. And so they might, their perspective, they might want to, change plans all of a sudden. And then the 8 of club can't handle that. Because they don't easily shift like that. So anyway, what do you guys think about these cards as well?
I could see that being challenging. Those 2 5s and that 8 of clubs, for sure. They'd probably be like, what is wrong with this kid? Like, we can't get it to change its mind. And all they do is constantly, they wake up and their day changes. And this person is just staying, into a routines. But I think also there can be beneficial because I think the 8 of clubs has a 5 as a result card. And so I think it's the 5 of hearts. And so there is this element of when they can free themselves of their mind. And so the parents, the grandmother and the mother, can really teach the 8 of clubs how to kind of free themselves from the constricts of the mind, being a fixed mental card, really being able to see things from a different point of view. Maybe taking that child traveling and exploring the world and kind of taking them out of their comfort zone so that they can, embrace adversities and be able to learn how to pivot when things shift. That change actually is going to help you grow so you don't stay stagnant. So I think there could be a lot of lessons within that dynamic for sure.
Oh my gosh, Gina, you're going to die when you hear this. So I figured out the composite card for these 3.
Uh-huh.
So the composite card is based on the solar values of cards. Each card has a number, and you add the numbers of each of the cards together and you get a composite. And the composite number is 44, which is the 5 of spade.
Wow.
Card.
Mm-hmm.
So you were spot on right there about exposing that child to travel and those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
Go ahead.
For sure, the 8 of clubs child is someone that will be affected by their experience, though. They do have a fixed way, but they also are very conscious and compassionate and attuned to what's happening around them. So they for sure would be expanded by experiences, and there's also a way that there would need to be a stillness still and not the activation of the two fives, because there'd also be a way that, I mean, to me, I think it's so interesting because I perceive the young girls in their 20s and 30s to be much older than me. They're like baby grandmas. Like they're so mature. They understand so many things, right? Like things that I thought, well, let me go tell them, that they don't realize that I didn't learn in my 33s. They knew when they were 13. Do you know what I mean? Like they're just a different version of us, right? So I think it's really beautiful to know that the mothers and the grandmothers are fiving, that we're changing, that we're moving with it, right? And that we know that there's like a fixation that can come with an eight, but they're not usually ones to manipulate. They like fairness a great deal. They really like it fair. It feels really good when it's fair.
The Eight of Clubs?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have a Six of Diamonds as Mercury. Very
Yeah,
much.
that also makes them highly competitive too.
Mhm. Very.
Oh yeah, they want to be pushed. They want to be pushed, and they want to push you. They're gonna push. Oh no, they're gonna push.
Right.
But they also reside in peace when they know that everything's kind of like doing what it needs to do. You know what I mean? They're not, yeah. Unless they're the boss of everything, they could be a little bit of a bully, the little one, right? The children, and I'll say to that, no offense, girls, but there are some bully energy coming through some of the younger people towards their families, right? Because it's almost like even my boys, they don't mean to be, but they're almost annoyed at me for being dumb about things that they know.
Oh my
It's like,
God.
but like, get over it. Like, we're done. Next.
Yeah,
Like, be the teacher. Like, we've been teaching you stuff. You didn't know how to tie your shoes. You didn't know how to comb your hair. So I
You gotta
put my
wipe your butt, and I
right?
did that.
So,
So,
like, if you want to upgrade us, if you want to bring it in and help us understand more about it and not like roll your eyes at us and go tell your friends and then bully us to get what you want, like, no, 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 no. That's not a relationship. And the sad part of that is you'll spread that. That won't stop with you. So our job as the mothers and the grandmothers is to say, yeah, I'm willing to change, but I'm not going back to, Queen Brat. Right? Everyone has to know how to regulate and manage themselves. And we have to be able to adapt and change with life in grace.
Yeah. And I think the influence of these two female energies on the Eight of Club would be really important when they're particularly in like middle school and high school. Because if I remember correctly, the Eight of Club has a Four of Spade Venus card. And that kind of energy would activate at age 13. And so that kind of set principles of bullying could like be played with at that age, experimented with at that age. And so I think these two older women that are fives can help kind of allow that child see a different perspective. Like, how would you feel, if that kind of, thing was done to you? So to help see like multiple perspectives, because fives can do that so well.
It's funny when you look at the Eight of Clubs, they have a 6 and a 4. I mean, they're so stuck.
Enough. Anyway, so listen to the Jack over there, the Queen Leo one, the stellium saying, oh yeah, that's stuck.
They're
Like
so stuck.
obsessed with the Eight of Clubs. Anyway, so I want to say that that there's the other part that comes up is the people that are going to be drawn to that mother, grandmother, and child are going to be heart cards, right? They're going to need more heart in there, right? There's going to be children of the hearts. There's going to be partners of the hearts, right? Heart cards are going to come to that, right? Because that's what it needs. Because part of where we get in our mind is stuck, right? Like it really likes to repeat itself. It really likes to be right. Like I think about how many times I've said the same stories on YouTube already. It's ridiculous, right? I'm like, can you shut up? Because like how many times does my mind say it? I'm telling Cole told me something. He goes, you've told me that 3 times. And I can appreciate that for you kids. It's like, it's annoying. Well, keep it fresh, keep it alive. Talk about what's really going on. Like activate some other conversation. Don't wait for us to just talk about the same thing again. Like bring the older people into your life. Help them understand. Ask them questions. Help them remember their 8-year-old self. ask everybody at dinner, what was it like when you were 8? What was it like? Because we're going to start talking about that here, the ages and the stages, and how at different times we go through different things. Start those conversations. What was it like for you when you were 15? Did you
So
have it? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
sorry. 2 years ago, for Christmas, my son gave me a subscription to Storyworth. Have you guys heard about that? So the way it works, Gina, is that every week he creates a question that he wants to ask me, and it's electronically sent to me, and I have like so many days to answer it, and you just answer it. You can add photos and anything that you want, and then you submit it, and it gets uploaded and then put together as a book. So you do 52 different questions and answers, and then you have this final product of a book of like 52 different stories that your child wanted to ask you. And I think that would be such a great kind of experience for like a granddaughter to do to a grandmother, or a daughter to a mother, to just really have the chance to, ask them things about like when they were young, see a different
I love that.
perspective.
Then you get to talk about it, right? Because somebody cares. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes you talk about it because it's still such a sweet part of your heart. You're just like, oh my gosh, la 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 la. I'm telling them about Smoking the Bandit. I'm giddy. I'm jumping up and down. They're like rolling their eyes, like, this is so weird, her in this movie. But my uncle was just like Jackie Gleason. Like, I had an uncle who used to talk like that and be like that. And like, I always thought it was so funny because it was so extreme. Like, in my house, our humor is nasty, it's almost like the extreme, and we don't take it personally. It's just, how silly is it to think like that, but I know that can be mean. And I think to someone who's really sensitive, one last thing I want to talk about our trees and saplings. We have these packages about these seedlings where we talk about you growing through it as a seed to a sapling to an adult tree to an ancient tree. I was thinking about how that mother tree and grandmother tree have to remember that that child tree is a sapling and the bark isn't as thick. Like, it's different. You know what I mean? Like, I remember even when I was a young mother, me talking to other kids and those kids just moving and almost being scared of me. And the mother's looking like, gosh, she was just so mean to my kid. And I was like, I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just telling him to go over there. You know what I mean? But my tone and my strength when I talk, it would be hurtful probably to that thinner bark, right? So that's my classroom with these girls, is learning how to speak to them in a way that I'm conscious of their deep sensitivity right now, because they're still maturing in their saplings and they're thin skinned and they don't know what's true or not true inside of themselves. They don't feel formed. They're still becoming. So, think about how you want to treat something that's still becoming. You don't want to tell it it's wrong before it starts. Yeah. Nice. That was a good reading.
Yeah, it was. Those, it's funny, the 5s and the 8, but when you look at the 8 of clubs spread, like I said, it has that 5 of hearts as its result card. So it is really about freeing itself and, being able to expand. It is one of the most brilliant cards in my opinion, just because of the power of that mind that it has. But it has to be mindful of being stuck. And so having those 2 5s can really, again, like you said, Donna, is have it see it from different perspectives and be open to that, right? So a very interesting dynamic with those energies for sure. I know an 8 of clubs who was raised by 2 8 of diamonds.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Leo 8 of diamonds was the dad, and I think the Libra 8 of diamonds was his mom, and he's the 8 of clubs. And I find 8s travel together with the 4s, like the 8s. There's certain dynamics that you see with these families that these cards show up with, but and he's very successful. He was very, very successful person because he had 2 parents that probably required a lot of.
Well, they like to be pushed a little bit. In my experience, they need to be pushed a little bit. Honestly. Yeah. So, but once going, they can be counted on for sure. Awesome. So this was wonderful. So then we also have the full moon coming up, and that's going to be on Sunday.
A blue moon, once in a blue moon, because it's the second full moon of Capricorn in this month. So,
anything else you want to share about it? What card?
29 degrees
29 degrees is kind of a big deal.
In a 3 of diamonds week, which is a solar value of 29.
Cool.
Hence what you saw today, which, things breaking down, the plane stuff, the banking stuff, the technical stuff. This is all
right.
As above, so below. You had the Uranus Mars conjunction at the beginning of the week, so there's a lot of intensity. And the 3 of diamonds, if you ever look at the 3 of diamonds path, it's like a roller coaster ride. Sevens, nines, Jack of hearts in the middle, but it transforms into a 4 of clubs. So I think with this full moon, and things kind of being released, or things being, exposed, there's some sense of like, there will be peace. There's always 4 of clubs is going to bring a lot of like more stability. But I think, you have to kind of, you have to stay present. You have to stay in the now, and you have to kind of, be able to, even through all the intensity, ground yourself. And I think with the Capricorn moon it's earth, so there's a lot of grounding with that, and grounding yourself spiritually and grounding yourself physically and, emotionally is going to be key. But it is definitely and what day is that? A 7 of clubs day at that too. So, where does your mind go? What is the spiritual knowledge that you're exposing yourself to? Elevate your thoughts, really work on that internal voice, and, use that grounding energy to kind of reconnect and root yourself. Because even with the sevens, because they can swing, the fact that it's happening on Sunday, it's the last day of the 3 of diamonds week, and the 3 of diamonds transforms into the 4 of clubs. It's so important to ground yourself in this energy, because 29 degrees is intense.
Yeah. Plus Mars is entering Gemini tomorrow.
That's my natal.
And I'm a Gemini, so so I'm trying to stay grounded, as you said, Gina, but also remind myself that I need to pick my battles, that I need to let go of things that really, in the big picture, don't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, as an example of that, my best friend canceled lunch with me, and it kind of got my feelings hurt a little bit. I got kind of like, because it wasn't like I felt like for a good reason. It wasn't like, oh, I got to take my dog to the vet, or it was just she had something better to do. So I got my feelings hurt. I was like, that's not a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
But today I'm feeling like, I just need to let that go.
Mm-hmm.
Just need to let it go.
It's fascinating. I'll be, as you know, my birthday is coming up at the end of this month, and we have Venus in Leo, which is my natal placement. We have Mars moving into Gemini, which is my natal placement. We have the sun moving into Leo, obviously my natal placement. And so it's fascinating at 45, which is a rebirth plate. All of these planets are in my natal placement. So if anybody ever questions this stuff, like, you really can't, because it really does align with you energetically. So I was like, wow, I don't think at my birthday, at least that I've ever paid attention to prior to me being in this space, has, the inner planets be it where it natally is naturally for me. So it's pretty dope.
Boy, clever working with you. It's good juice.
Yeah, that Mars and Gemini. Ooh.
I'm like,
it's like working with. Well, we both have a Mars and Geminis. That's where Gina and I are like sisterly that way.
Mm-hmm.
We get our humor and our voices. We both give each other permission to talk the way we talk, because we both talk like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten better. I don't think Gina has to get better, but there's
I'm much better. My mouth used to be, you thought I could fight with my hands. Shoot, that's nothing what my mouth can do. So, right. But I've gotten much better at realizing the power of my words and not flying off the handle at the drop of a dime.
Yeah. I found prayer was my way, like, because I did like to talk, right? I did, like, my Mars and Gemini, it likes to express itself. And because when I'd get mad, it would come out, like some people would say in calling me as a person, that's when I'm the most honest. That's when I say things that are the most true is when I'm mad sometimes. And sometimes people really listen when I'm mad, because they know that I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm going to tell you. Right. And so that was something that I became scared of in a way. Right. So to me, because I didn't want to create things with my rage. So this prayer thing became a way for me to align more and tune to what I wanted to see. Like this idea that you speak life into reality, that what you focus on grows. That just makes a lot of sense. Like it may
Mhm.
not be exactly like I say, but the basics of like, here we are in our third week as the seed starts to go into the ground, you know what I mean? And you can see it starting to like root itself and figure out what it's going to connect to grow. It's like with a full moon lined up in this way, like I first off always say thank you. Like, thanks for keeping me awake while this was coming together so I could be part of something like this.
Yep.
Like, thanks so much for the way it happens so naturally when you say yes to what feels true. Like when you know it and you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and then just, whatever it is that one you do ground, however you ground, like it's what you listen to, it's what you say, it's your vibrational diet that creates what comes your way. That's just part of it. That's just how we're made. So I just am excited to see what the full moon brings, but I do suggest that everybody pay attention to what wants to be seen and try not to like make believe it's not there. Don't overlook anything, especially when everything's trying to come on the table. Because what we like to say here is keep everything on the table. No under the table stuff. It just makes you sad or mad.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's what a toxic family is a bunch of under table stuff.
Yep.
So that's wonderful. What do you guys think? Anything you want to bring into that full moon or intentions? I think we did our list. I feel great about it. I think that everybody was fine. We didn't have a guest today, but I like what we talked about, and I think it was a perfectly timed show. So I feel complete. How about you all?
I feel complete. I think it was good.
Me too.
Well, then there you go, everybody. Keep your cards on the table. Be honest and true. We can't wait to know more about you. Go look at the packages at thefamilycardtable.com. And sooner than later, there'll be stuff underneath us that'll tell you things too that you can connect to. Hopefully, that article sooner than later. So thanks. Ladies. It's been really nice to be with you today. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend.